Well, greetings viewers and voyeurs. This is a video response to Thunderfoot. To one of my first videos ever was a response to your video. I think your video was called Rejecting Atheism. I'm not sure if it's still on your channel. But in that video, Rejecting Atheism, I took issue with the fact that you seem to be alluding in your video that all Christians were Bible literalists who were hankering for the end of the world. And so, I did a cordial but critical video response to that. So I'd like to declare myself as not one of the people who never criticized you when you misspoke about anything other than Islam. So I want to get that straight out there at the beginning of this video. Because one of your main criticisms seems to be that you never got criticized back then, but you do now. Not true. It's just not true. Perhaps it wasn't the volume, and maybe just the fact that you have more subscribers is partly the explanation for that. And maybe it's also the fact that there's an awful lot of anti-Islamic rhetoric in the world right now because this is an election year stateside. And for that matter, it was an election year here in the UK a few months back. So yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. Now, unfortunately for me, you seem to consider me amongst your detractors, like some sort of hostile force on YouTube or something. Which to me is unfortunate, although I suppose understandable, because I have been rather critical of lots of the things that you've said on the topic of Islam over the past 4 or 5 months. However, it hasn't been the case that I disagree with the underlying points you've been trying to make. I just think you've been piss poor at making them. And frankly, I think you're a pretty smart guy, and so it's really hard for me to wrap my head around the possibility that you're not smart enough to know what you're doing. As regards the way you've been presenting your anti-Islamic stuff lately. And by lately, I mean the past 4 or 5 months. Alright, now, in your video, The Subtle Art of Self-Delusion, you make the point that you didn't take the kind of criticism that you used to take, you didn't used to take the kind of criticism for your Why Do People Laugh at Creationists videos, even though you used to rip the shit out of creationists. And you wonder why that might be. Really? I kind of think it's obvious, but okay, I'm just going to give you what my take on it might be. Of course, I could be wrong. But it seems to me that, creationists are making claims which are scientifically disprovable, and you went to all the trouble of scientifically disproving them in an easy-to-understand format. And you actually did disprove the things they were saying. It wasn't really open to opinion. You disproved the things that they were saying. And it's really hard to criticize, proof. So that's one thing right there. The other side of it is, mathematics has no bias, chemistry has no bias, physics have no bias. So there's no inherent or even implied bias behind the presentation of your scientific arguments. Creationists might like to think so, but the fact is any rational person knows that, there's no bias in mathematics, etc. So, I think that's one of the reasons why you didn't get the kind of criticism. I think another reason would be that you didn't make the same kinds of mistakes. I really do think you're making mistakes in the past few months in the way that you present your arguments. Considering the fact that I really more or less agree with many of the actual underlying points you're trying to make, I would go so far as to say I think you've been irresponsible in the way you've been trying to make them. And that's really unfortunate, because I consider myself to be a fan of yours. So, that's why I actually care. If you say something that I think is stupid, I should say something, shouldn't I? I would have thought. But yeah, if you made the same kinds of mistakes, for example, if in your videos you substitute the word Christian for creationist and Christianity for creationism, but had exactly the same content, you would have had people calling you out. You would have had people saying, hey, Thunderfoot, not all creationists are Christians, and not all Christians are creationists. Sound familiar? So I think, the fact is that you were more careful with your language back then than you have been of late. Now you, I think, would disagree with that because you referenced your video on Why Do People Laugh at Creationists number 21, which you said a couple of things that might be construed as very similar to later statements in 2010 on this subject. For example, you were talking about Western nations and if they had a similarly low value of human life as do the Islamic world, then the Islamic world would have been snuffed by now, is more or less the implication of what you were saying. And I suppose that's very similar to what you said in your South Park versus Islam video. I think that was the one, or might have been the free speech one. Can't remember, but it was one of those videos. Anyway, the point basically is I can understand why you would think the two things are similar, and I have to say that had I been watching videos at the time you made Why Do People Laugh at Creationists number 21, which I wasn't, but had I been watching videos back then, I would have taken issue with that statement. Because frankly, that reeks of Western arrogance, okay, and entitlement. Because whilst I would agree that there's a lot of evidence of inhumanity in certain Muslim countries, especially where they stone people and so forth, and a lot of discrimination against women, and there's a lot of problems with Islamic countries. I'm not saying there's not. But what I am saying is to suggest that they have a lower appreciation for the value of human life is, like I say, it reeks of Western arrogance. Because it was Western countries that came up with eugenics, with Auschwitz, with the nuclear bomb, global warming, etc. So whilst we have many accomplishments in the West to be proud of and civilizations which, thank goodness, for the most part, don't operate on any kind of barbaric level, for the most part, to say that we have a greater value of human life, I mean, does the phrase, collateral damage mean anything to you? Come on, man. I just don't think that's fair, and I think people in other parts of the world who are the victims of our arrogance would see it the way I just described. The fact that we're not the victims doesn't justify not seeing it that way. Right. In the same video, Why Do People Laugh at Creationists number 21, you said, about how Islam's not really a threat militarily to the West. And you said, where does this military disparity come from? The reason is simple. Islam as practice, both past and present, has been a retardant for science. Okay. Again, I would have taken issue with that had I seen it at the time. Although, probably not to the same degree as I do with the recent stuff that you've said. Because in the context of the video, why do people laugh at creationists? The statement doesn't have the same implication because of the context in which it's made. All right, but my contention with the statement is this. The reason is simple. Islam both past and whoa, whoa, whoa. No, it's not that simple. Islam is a factor. I would grant you that. The degree to which it's a factor, we could argue about. But the history has so much to do with it. The political situation has so much to do with it. I mean, the economic situation has so much to do with it. Are you kidding? It is not simple. But like I say, in the context of the video, I understand why people might not have picked you up on it. Right. Now, when you showed the clip from my video at about 6:15 into the subtle art of self-delusion, you just showed the description box. Now, it might have been a coincidence, but while you were showing that, you were talking about how your critics were calling you a bigot and accusing you of hate speech and so forth. Well, I've never called you a bigot in a video, and to the best of my knowledge, I've never called you a bigot in the comment section to any video, although I might have referred to a statement of yours as bigoted. But that's not the same thing, because you don't have to be bigoted. You don't have to be a bigot to say a bigoted thing, And, there's reasons for that, which I don't think I have time to go into right now. But as far as hate speech goes, no, sorry, not guilty. I don't even believe in hate speech, so I can't accuse you of it since I don't accept that hate speech is, what it is, what people say it is. I'm a big advocate of free speech, almost to a fault. And that's one of the things that you and I have in common. It's just that you seem to have a different idea to me about certain aspects of it. Now, I want to go into a couple of things you said because you threw out this great straw man in this video. I'm going to quote you directly. Basically, it's not bigotry in these people's minds to rag on about Christians, creationists, Scientologists, Catholics, because basically they never get worked up about it. But it's clearly bigotry to do the same thing to Islam because merely drawing their profit will get them to burn down embassies and so on. Dude, I'm so not guilty. I'm the guy, as you well know, who came up with Have You Seen This Man 2 days before the Draw Muhammad Day thing ever got mentioned. You know, so I was never afraid to be critical of Islam or to stick my two fingers in their face and say, hey, you know, you've crossed the line. You can't go that far. So no, I'm not afraid of Muslims. I'm not afraid of Islam. In fact, the reason I have a problem with most of the things you're saying is because I'm not afraid of Muslims at all. I know loads of Muslims locally. None of them fit the description of the Muslims in your videos. None of them. And they have ancestry from all over the world. Most of them are British, but, you know, some of them are Turkish, some of them are Bangladeshi, and most of them are British from either Bangladesh or Pakistani origin. But the bottom line is I know lots of Muslims locally. Lots of them. Quite a few of them drink. None of them pray 5 times a day. So, you know, this idea that all Muslims can be packaged into these dogmatic viewpoints, I mean, you know, they all obviously are, you know, faithful up to a point. But, you know, it's funny what people say about, you know, someone's of Jewish heritage, but they're not a practicing Jew, or someone's of Catholic heritage, but they're not a practicing Catholic. I think the same is true for Muslims, to a much larger degree than people seem to give credit to. So that's something I want to put out there. And I also really want to take issue with this whole idea that the reason that I'm not critical of Islam is because I'm afraid of it. Nothing could be further from the truth. I am not afraid of it. That's why I'm critical of Islam's critics, because I don't think we have anything to be afraid of. It's just a stupid religion. At the end of your video, Thunderfoot, you ask, you know, what's changed? And then you go on to say, I'm going to quote you, it's not that I'm unnecessarily harsh on Islam. It's just that many folks seem to think that of the various religions I've criticized, Islam should be given a special pass from mild criticism. And I want to know why. I don't think that that is a fair statement at all. I don't think Islam should be given a special pass for mild criticism. No, I don't. I don't think that's what I'm asking of you. I don't think that's what most people are asking of you. I think people are telling you to stop giving fuel to the bigots. Whether you yourself are a bigot or not, I don't feel entitled to say, because I can't tell whether you're saying the things you're saying deliberately or not. I myself, you know, I rely on implying things. I mean, I deliberately make the effort of not saying what I mean. I try to imply things. It's part of my sense of humor. And in my YouTube videos, I do it a lot, just to see if my audience is keeping up, you know. So I naturally assume that people who are smart, who say things which can easily be construed a certain way, but they don't actually say that thing that they can be construed to say, I just assume they're doing it on purpose. I mean, you're a smart guy, Thunderfoot, obviously so. I really, really have a hard time accepting that you don't know the implications of the things you're saying and the easy way, the room that you're making for bigots. If you don't consider yourself to be a bigot, fair enough, I'll grant you that based on everything else I've ever seen if you do. But don't you understand that you're making room for bigotry by the things that you're saying? I could do a point by point if you want, but I wanted to keep this video really conversational in the hope that you'd actually, you know, take the moment and listen. With that in mind, I want to thank you for watching, and may all your ups and downs be ups. I'm sure I won't get a video response. But you know, if I've said anything that you really disagree with, I hope you'll let me know in a comment. Thanks.